And yeah, we can go ahead and get started. It's 1:30. I got some good stuff for you guys. So, hello again. I spoke in the opening keynote. If you didn't get to hear me before, my name's Ryan Feldman. I am a hacker. I'm a developer. I'm an artist. I like to think of myself as a lot of different things, but for today, I'm going to put on a few different hats, and the two ones I'll be talking about is rapid prototyping and Unity developer. So rapid prototyping is more of an ideology. We'll get to talk about that a little bit. And it's a method for building products, building solutions, solving problems. And Unity, well, if you don't know what Unity is, it's a real-time 3D game engine. And that's my happy place as a developer. I fell in love with Unity when I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was in a programming course at the beginning of my high school career, and there were some seniors that were talking about this new platform where you could go ahead and make your own games. And I had wanted to make video games since I was 4 years old, and it just sparked my interest. It's just this little freshman asking the seniors, hey, what is this thing? What is Unity? Is it free? Can I download it? And I don't even know their names at this point, but thank you, whoever you were, for getting me started. And here we are today, over 10 years later, and still love doing development in that platform. That's my work email. LightGuide is the company that I work for. I'm the software development manager over there. I don't get to do as much Unity development as I'd like to, being in that role, but LightGuide has its own sets of problems and challenges that scratch that game dev itch. So yeah, I'm a game dev at heart. But we'll get started. I'm not going to bore you guys with, a whole bunch of boilerplate, but for anyone who still doesn't know what XR stands for, I know we get a lot of different definitions. This is from Google Gemini after reviewing a few different definitions, what we came up with. XR is a catch-all term for technologies that blend the real and the digital, and it includes virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality on a spectrum. And what is rapid prototyping? Well, rapid prototyping is a methodology for quickly creating and testing interactive versions of a product or concept, and it allows for fast feedback, fast iteration, and overall improving the design and the form and function of whatever it is that you're building. Does anyone know what these people are doing? Or what it looks like they're doing? No? Give you a hint. There's a wheel, and they're trying to reinvent it. And you don't do this. Use the tools you have. There's so many tools available now. 10 years ago, I would say, I don't know, you're going to have to build it yourself because the toolkits weren't there. The dev kits weren't there. My first headset was an OS VR headset, which was before the DK2. I don't know if it was before the DK1 from Oculus, but it was an open source VR headset. No documentation, no developer community. You were just searching through forums trying to find someone who had your hardware and could speak to how to work with it. And now you got a lot more tools in the toolbox, and you should use all of them. So where are we now? The XR revolution is what I want to call it. So XR is no longer a futuristic concept. It's transforming how we interact with the world across various different industries. LightGuide is more focused on industrial manufacturing. I've worked in ed tech. I've worked in just games. I've worked in personal and business productivity, remote collaboration, digital worlds, avatars, digital asset ownership. All of this folds into the XR umbrella really well when we start talking about blending the real and the virtual. So let's talk about VR headsets for a second because, well, why not? And all of or most of the images that you'll see in this presentation are AI generated. This is one that I did trying to do a Spartan versus U of M showdown. I'm a Spartan. I like some healthy competition, and there's no lack of competition in the world of headsets. So where are we today? Generally, people are buying more headsets, which is a good thing for XR because VR headsets are some of the most affordable ways to experience truly immersive experiences without having to use kind of the phone view or have kind of that picture-in-picture augmentation. So I really like VR headsets. I worked and was a co-founder of Immersed. If you've heard of Immersed, they are now producing their own headset hardware, but prior to that, was solely focused on a remote collaboration platform. When I was working for them, I was in a headset 8 hours a day for about 2.5 years. I have a lot of time in the headset. I have my, I don't know what the equivalent of sea legs are for headsets, but no motion sickness. There's very few things that bother me at this point. But that's not the case for everyone. So we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm not an ambassador for Meta. They do not pay me. But I am a big fan of their developer tools, their platform. There's over 31 million Quest headsets out there today. 31 million headsets that could be downloading your experience if you put that on App Lab or the Quest Store. And no PC computational requirements. So it's a lot of headsets for one platform. So we'll move on to the next portion of the presentation, which is foundations for rapid XR prototyping. And in this section, I'm going to give you a lot of unsolicited advice. So some of it's opinion-based, some of it I have, anecdotes and data to back it up. But really, take my opinions, what's in this presentation with a grain of salt, and make the decision for yourself at the end. So there are a lot of tools out there, but we're going to try to simplify things for the sake of the hack, for the sake of discussion. And this is where I think most people should be starting nowadays. So you got Unity as a preferred 3D engine. You have the Quest integration as a preferred SDK. SDK stands for Software Development Kit, if you didn't know that. APIs are sometimes folded in with SDKs. That stands for Application Programming Interface. There are Quest-specific APIs that only Quest devices can tap into, such as the Presence platform, some of the avatars, although that's continuing to open up. And the runtime we'll be targeting is OpenXR. Yes, you can target OpenXR on Quest devices. You can use Quest interactions on other headsets, but it's still, there's a bit of friction. So we're going to start where it's easiest for us to develop, where we're going to get the most feedback the quickest, and hopefully drive adoption for whatever it is that we're building. So after giving you that unsolicited advice, you probably have some questions. Why Unity? And that's a good question. So some of this is objective, some of it's subjective. Like I said, everything with a grain of salt here. But overall, I know Unreal and I know Unity, and I also know other game engines as well. In my opinion, Unity is the easiest to learn. There's enough resources out there. You can find a rollerball tutorial or your first, VR experience and get something going. And beyond that, there's also tons of samples available from all of the major headset providers for Unity, so you can develop per headset if you want to, or lean into that OpenXR pipeline and get something going that's going to work everywhere. Unity also has a very strong XR community. Unity is very involved with, when headsets come online. Seeing that there's a Unity SDK is oftentimes a good way to get, to ensure the adoption of your headset. So Pico has a Unity integration first. MetaQuest has a Unity integration first. And that's going to continue being a trend because Unity is accessible and it has that community of people that even if that company doesn't want to develop that SDK, the community will jump in and try to figure out how to make it work. And you just don't really get that on the Unreal side. It's a little more esoteric in that sense. Unity is also known for mobile games, mobile apps. And so when we're talking about standalone headset hardware, optimization is really important. You want that really good performance, and Unity oftentimes performs better out of the box on mobile platforms than something like Unreal, because Unreal is made for AAA beautiful games and is oftentimes pretty heavy. In the past, that wasn't always the case. Unity was considered to be heavy and clunky for just getting something going. But since then, I've seen the platform evolve, and build sizes are getting smaller, execution's getting faster, and there's no shortage of device support. So as you're deploying your XR experiences, you might be thinking, well, maybe I want to go WebXR. Maybe I want to go lean into this specific hardware platform like the Apple Vision Pro. And Unity allows you to start with that base and then graduate and lean into those other features very naturally. And some people might say, well, Unity doesn't have visual scripting. That's false. Unity does have visual scripting. They acquired Bolt. If you like your blueprints, you can get that in Unity as well. So I am a Unity fanboy, and I probably will always be. It's like your first love. You never quite forget that. So why Quest? It's also a good question. So Quest has a huge audience, like we mentioned the numbers before. It's affordable, lower cost of entry. You can now get the Quest 3S for, I think it's like $299. I got a second used Quest 3 after the price drop for $300. So go on Facebook Marketplace, go get yourself a headset if you don't have one and you want to get one. Now's a good time. Quest is largely wireless, so shared multiplayer experiences and even just mobile, larger scale or without needing to be tethered to a computer is really great. I never thought that mobile VR was going to get to where it is so quickly, because I still remember putting my phone inside a Google Cardboard and thinking, wow, this is incredible. Like, I have no computer, I'm in this immersive world, and in hindsight, it was very limited compared to what we now have access to. Quest has OpenXR support from the very beginning. We'll get into that a little bit more, but what you should know is that Meta is a big supporter of a open, well, it's in the name, OpenXR experience. They want to get people to develop on that platform and expand it outward. And that shows with Mark Zuckerberg's most recent announcement, which is the expansion of the Meta Quest OS. So you're going to have third-party headsets, cheaper headsets that are running Meta Quest that have OpenXR runtime because they're running Meta Quest, and therefore you'll be able to build and get that on other headsets. Now that's still very much in its infancy, but it's coming, and I believe in it. And then finally, why OpenXR? Too many good questions, you guys, so slow it down for me. But OpenXR is future-proof. There are so many backers to it, much like the internet and internet standards that have come about over the past, well, I guess it'd be 30 plus years at this point, much longer, 40 plus. OpenXR is that standard, and I don't see it going away. There have been competitive standards that have come up. None of them have really taken traction, and everyone's kind of aggregating into OpenXR as a blueprint for how most XR devices should be able to operate and the things that they should handle. OpenXR is portable. You can adapt your app for other headsets. You can lean into certain OpenXR features that are only available on headsets, and your app can be reactive to that. OpenXR also has the latest feature capabilities for hand tracking and eye tracking, although some headsets are lagging behind getting some of that data into OpenXR, such as the Apple Vision Pro. And OpenXR is optimized for performance because it's going across all these different devices. We got to make sure that it's a seamless experience across all of them, and that strong support of all the major backend players ensures that it's not going anywhere, and you have lots of community resources. Could I be wrong? Yes, I am human, but if we take a look at the risks, they're pretty easy to navigate. So let's say you go with OpenXR, you go with Meta Quest platform, and you go with the Oculus runtime. Well, now you're locked into a platform, but that platform's OpenXR based, so OpenXR mitigates being locked into Meta's platform. You could eventually adapt that if you wanted to move away from the quest line entirely. It's still OpenXR runtime, and your interactions will still function, with a caveat. You got to make sure, however deep you're going, that you're willing to sacrifice that if you ever have to move away. Quest is a closed ecosystem, so they have their own app store. People have argued that it's curated. There are limitations on user freedom, but Meta has been opening that up, so that's good to see. App Lab, I believe, is being depreciated, and it's just going to be one big app store with different qualifiers at that point. So you'll be able to go find the indie titles that only have 5 downloads, and you'll be able to find, your Beat Saber, your Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners, and whatever else is hot at that time. And future uncertainty. So while Meta is a major player in the landscape, it's constantly evolving. It's evolved very quickly over the past 10 years. It'll continue to iterate even faster. And so when you build something, you need to make sure that you're also staying up to date with those industry trends, because the last thing you want to hear is that in 3 months, the headset that you're used to shipping your experience on is now going to be depreciated, or there's going to be some major API breakage that now none of your stuff works anymore. You want to get out ahead of that. And so being a XR developer, XR hacker, experience builder, it's not just about building the experience, it's knowing all the moving parts that went into crafting that experience and how resilient they are to changes. So we're going to talk about 2 mindsets. They're both the same mindset, they're similar, but this is how I think people should be orienting themselves and thinking about the solutions that they're creating. So focus on feel, not content. And what I mean by that starts with a challenge. Content generation for XR is still very time intensive for many different applications and varies based on hardware platforms, SDKs, and development environment. You can mitigate all of those risks, but there's still considerations that you need to be aware of. And in order to focus on feel and not content, we need to minimize In order to focus on feel and not content, that means we need to see how users are going through the experience, make sure that it feels good, make sure that it's already polished before you're bringing in those fancy art assets and other things that you are spending a lot of time on, and get something, one thing right instead of the breadth of content. This is very relatable to hackathons. Everyone comes in, they have these big ideas, and then you have to come back down to reality and say, well, I only have a day to make this, so what do I really want to focus on? And this is classic game design stuff. If you built, bigger than, just a little mini game, you've tried building immersive experience that has that breadth, you quickly realize that if you don't have those fundamentals down, the breadth means nothing because no one will actually ever get to see that. They'll put the experience down before they get there. And so that brings us to the second point, nail it. Start with something small, but foundational, and break it down, break the complicated pieces down into simple chunks. So some people call this agile development, some people call this fail fast, but really you want to get one thing right and then move on to whatever the next thing is. And so if I can give one word of advice, one takeaway from this entire talk, if you're still figuring out the scope of your hack, start with that one thing that's really going to set you apart and make sure that you're laser focused on nailing it. So that way, when a judge gets to try it, when you have people coming up, they're wowed almost immediately and they see the value in kind of your thinking and what brought you here. If you don't nail that one thing, you might miss out on the magic. It might be a beautiful, storytelling experience, but if you can't flip past the first page, no one will ever know what happened at the end. Okay. So why rapid prototyping matters? So, like I mentioned before, traditional XR development is expensive. Rapid prototyping allows you to get that early validation, faster iteration, and reduce those development costs. But this is the most important piece. It increases your user satisfaction. You can know before you finish your game that people are going to enjoy it. or if it's not a game, if it's something else, you know that it's working. And that's really valuable as you're trying to iterate, so you can act quickly and get that polish without wasting resources. And if we're thinking in a business sense, rapid prototyping allows you to bring valuable experiences to the market faster. Put that entrepreneurship hat on. If you had to take what you're building today and turn that into a business, where would you start? And what would be, the most important pieces that you need to nail? And I think it boils down to give the people what they want. No one's going to use your app, use your experience if you don't know what they want and it's not, desirable. Let the hacking begin. Well, we're already started, but with that information, the information I've already shared, I think you're kind of ready. I'm going to give a little bit more to help out. So prerequisite, dev mode enabled. It's a little bit easier to do this now, but you still got to look up, a little video tutorial, go to the settings, and enable your ability to develop on your own headset hardware. So, or any hardware for that matter. If you're doing, Android phone development, you still need to enable debug mode. And Apple, I believe you have to have a developer account. There's a whole mess of stuff that needs to happen before you can actually get started. And so, if we're using Unity, establish a link between your editor and the device, and make sure that all of your software, all of your drivers are up to date, that they're compliant with one another. I can't tell you how many times I've downloaded the wrong version of Unity for something, and then the sample tells me, oh, you need to upgrade. And now I'm stuck waiting for that to upgrade instead of just going right in and doing the thing. Another prerequisite is free samples. Unity has this great developer community. There's tons of resources out there. Getting a free sample will help you get familiar with the iteration pipeline and the tools available. So first step, choose something. Decide what you want to focus on as a simple starting point and find a relevant sample to try. So if your experience is about a person, going through a scary haunted house and all they have is a torch to illuminate the way, well, first thing you want to do is make sure that they can grab the torch, that when you hold the torch up, there's some light, and maybe when the torch is in front of something, that ghost or whatever goes away. You want to find something that at least satisfies one of those things, either letting me grab the torch, something that works with colliders, or directional, ray casting, like, ooh, I gotcha. So you want to choose something, find a relevant sample. Second thing you want to do is build something. So take that sample, this is the easiest way, take that sample, build it yourself to establish your pipeline. If you've never built something to your MetaQuest before, your Quest headset, don't go trying to do the Unity Cube example. I mean, you can, but it's just not going to be that great. What I would suggest is go download one of Meta's samples and try to build that. And then, finally, put a twist on it. Step 3. Ensure that you understand the relevant content in that sample and make it your own in an interesting way. This is the easiest way to hack. Find the sample that's close enough to what you're looking for, start making iterative improvements or changes, and that'll give you a good grip on kind of the building blocks and how to possibly do it yourself. But again, don't reinvent the wheel. So, like I mentioned before, one of the reasons I like MetaQuest is because there's no shortage of samples, and they continue to grow. So whether it's UI interaction for buttons, for panels, if you are trying to do some physics interactions with a slingshot, or trying to make virtual ping pong, or locomotion, hand tracking for gestures, there are samples for all of these things, and all you have to do is go on the MetaQuest documentation, and you'll find them, and you'll find download links. And so I have a link here when I distribute the presentation for where to get started. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of things that you can do with just a little sample. Just looking at the pieces that we have here, I've got hand gestures. I could do, rock, paper, scissors against a bot. Easy. I could, have a explore your own environment with a locomotion sample. I could make my own version of Angry Birds in VR because I already have a slingshot available. So that's kind of the way that I approach development. Is I look at the pieces that I have, and I figure out what's something cool that I could do to make this my own. And when we're talking about inventing new things, that's how the best do it. Is they look at two what would otherwise be independent concepts, they try to smash them together and find something new. You can look at two of these samples and say, well, I want a game where people are moving around using only hand tracking and then doing slingshots at each other. Well, you'll probably need the slingshot example. You'll need locomotion. You might want to download like a mixed reality sample as well if you want to get some scene understanding, the environment. It's really easy to kind of cobble the pieces together now. And I say really easy from the lens of it used to be a lot harder. So give yourself some time. Don't try to do all of those things at the same time. Start with your sample. Make sure you understand the sample, then try to layer on top of it. Controversially, my other suggestion is get comfy with an AI assistant. AI tools such as GitHub Copilot, Google Gemini, did I spell that? No, there's a typo there. ChatGPT and others can help you build momentum faster. I like to call this going from 0 to 1. I'm a programmer. We like our zeros and ones. But if you have an idea and you kind of have an idea as well of how the code is supposed to look, it's really easy to use these tools as kind of a gut check. Show me what that would look like. Help me expand on this sample. And so code generation for boilerplate, scripting components, and simple object interactions, super easy. If you're doing anything with colliders, ray casting, those kinds of simple but can very quickly become complex interactions, they're great for that. Idea exploration, I do this all the time. Kind of just chatting back and forth, expanding on ideas, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, asking, do you see any risks with me going in this direction? And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but being able to kind of get at the root of those ideas that you have quickly and expand them is also a good time saver. Code documentation, maybe you got something from a MetaQuest sample and you don't know how it actually works, copy paste that code and see if you can maybe get an idea of what's going on. And example prompts. So for specific examples of using LLMs for XR prototyping, if you don't know what prompt to give a language model, you can ask the language model itself and say, hey, what would be some good prompts to do game development or do game design? And you'd be surprised, you can get pretty far. It's not perfect, but again, pretty far. Another app that I'm a fan of, ShapesXR. If you haven't used ShapesXR, it does have its own learning curve, but I love this app. It has a direct export to Unity option. So you can model in there, you can build interactions in there, you can export whole scenes, and you're designing and prototyping in VR from the start, which is a totally different way of developing. But once you get the hang of it, you are able to get through things a lot faster. Now, it all comes with the caveat of you need to get comfortable with this technology. If you want to develop VR experiences, you got to spend a lot of time in VR. You want to do mixed reality, probably a lot of stuff like that. You want to make the next Pokemon Go, play a lot of Pokemon Go, and then you have a good idea of what to do and what not to do. ShapesXR has both the utility of being able to be immersed in your work, get through some of that rapid prototyping, export, but it's also a good way to get in that mindset of I'm fully immersed in this experience and getting yourself in that position before you've even written a line of code. Shout out to GrowKit, GrowKit. I hope I'm saying that right. I recently found out about this very late last night, looked at the SDK. I'm super impressed. This is something that you should really look into. We've got 3 Pound Games here, and they're giving us access to this kit. What's really nice about GrowKit is that it fills in the gap from some of the samples that I previously mentioned. So once you get a hang of those samples, you want to do more with those, and you want to build upon them. And not everyone wants to have to write many lines of code to build, a simple puzzle, for example. And GrowKit has those foundational building blocks that go beyond kind of the simple interactions and getting started. So I haven't had a chance to download it and try the development pipeline myself, but from watching the videos and talking with the 3 Pound Games team, I feel very confident this is exactly what devs need, and I hope that it continues to take off. We're wrapping up here, but review for tips for rapid prototyping, focus on those core mechanics, keep it simple, and use placeholder assets. I don't want to see any beautiful art from anyone unless you're a 3D artist and that's your entire hack, is viewing my beautiful art. I would much rather see people having experiences that are fun, immersive, that have some level of depth, and then saving that visual polish for later. If it plays well and it looks like crap, it's still a really good experience. If the whole point of the experience is for it to look beautiful, then flip what I said entirely. Focus on the beauty, don't focus on the depth. Make sure you have lots of cool things for people to look at. It all depends. But for most things, I would say save the art to the end. Conclusion. So, no, I don't work for Unity. No, I'm not sponsored by Meta. And no, I'm not an ambassador for OpenXR, but I'm a hacker just like you guys. And I'm trying to make my way through an exciting and ever-changing, growing technology ecosystem. I'm a human, one who enjoys meaningful and delightful experiences, both building them and participating. And I hope this wasn't all boilerplate. I hope you learned something. I hope you have some questions. But most of all, I hope that this helped you in some way and you're able to take this into your hack and really power through. So great time to be doing this sort of development. We have lots of hardware. We have lots of experts. We don't have a lot of time. So yeah, embrace that rapid prototyping, embrace the tools. And if you have any questions about tools or anything I said in the presentation, you can always come up after and I'm happy to talk. Last thing, calling all video game and XR experts. I am an ambassador for the Sparty Lab. So MSU researchers are conducting a paid focus group study on perception of virtual worlds. Video game and XR professionals, as well as students, are invited to share their expertise. You'll get paid $50 for 90 minutes. It'll be taking place on Sunday, October 13th, so this Sunday, from 1 to 4 p.m., and it'll be here on U of M's campus. So if you're interested, if you want to make a little money, if you want to get to talk to Robbie, who is one of my mentors and just really interesting person in the XR space. He loves avatars, digital worlds, and everything in between. Send him an email at rar@msu.edu. It stands for Robbie Rattan, I believe. Or it could be, do you know? You know what? Ravindra? No. Okay. Well, there you go. So message Robbie. We are looking for volunteers, and should be a really good experience. So Sparty Lab, if you don't know Sparty Lab, they focus on the social and psychological approaches to research technology interaction effects. It's a really forced acronym, in my opinion, but they focus on the social, the psychological impacts of technology, and how people interact with that. And so if you're interested in learning more, feel free to talk to me. We also have Nicholas from Sparty Lab here. I just met Nicholas, so yeah, we can answer questions or anything else. I will leave you with a quote. Technology is best when it brings people together. This is from Matt Mullenweg. He is a founder of the Open Web, WordPress, if you've ever heard of that. He's a co-founder of that. And I just think this is a beautiful, beautiful quote. And technology is bringing all of us together this weekend, and it's an honor to be here. And I hope technology continues to bring us together. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Yes, Andy.
So Are there other alternatives to OpenXR for XR runtime?
Like cross-platform XR runtime?
Yeah.
Not exactly. And I'll say that I'll explain. So let's talk about like MRTK, for example. Mixed reality toolkit developed by Microsoft. It's been around for years. Was shut down by Microsoft and then came back from the developer community, from the grave. So a bunch of people said, no, we love MRTK. We're going to do that. That's our cross-platform framework. The way that MRTK works is through whatever target runtime you have, it will act as that intermediary layer and kind of stitch things together. MRTK also has support for OpenXR runtime. So, short answer is yes. Long answer is it almost always boils down back to OpenXR. So, there are also plenty of headsets that you can do either or. You can develop on that customer proprietary one that maybe is also OpenXR compliant and can go to other headsets. Or you can completely abandon OpenXR and that development SDK and go with something like XR Foundation from Unity or XR Interaction Toolkit from Unity, which is also usually boiling down to OpenXR. So you can't really avoid it. There's a lot of momentum backing it, but certain headsets will always have kind of bespoke featuring, and it's only a matter of time before we get something, brand new. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Apple, some special button on the headset or the crown dial or something. That's not in the OpenXR spec. That kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just curious because it's easy to think of alternatives to not for things.
Yeah. No, OpenXR is it's very ingrained at this point. It's been around for many years. It's got a lot of special interests with lots of money invested in it. But I think the promise is real, which is open interoperability for developers, for people consuming XR experiences, and it's where we should be heading. If not OpenXR, something else. Put another name on it. I'm fine with it. But what I'm really looking for, so I guess maybe, this is a good one. One way to avoid OpenXR is maybe just to go straight to WebXR, which WebXR is now having some overlap with OpenXR as well. Like you can have OpenXR, Target, WebXR. I don't know if you can go vice versa because WebXR is a bit more limited, but that can also be a great equalizer, is if you don't care about performance or the depth of the experience as much, if it's just a very simple experience, you can do WebXR. And yes, you can do WebXR with hand tracking. I'm not sure about eye tracking providers at this point, but I just thought of that. That could be one way to kind of circumvent it. Any other questions? Okay. Thanks, everyone. Good luck hacking. I'm excited to see the results. I'm Ryan. If you have any questions, I'll be around either here or in the back. Thanks.